here we are. We're doing the thing.
Dr. Claudia Thompson is back for an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers.
Source is working through us to elevate all of us.
And she's taking us for the ride of our lives.
And the thing is if you're being offered the ride, you're meant to be on it, because not everybody is being offered the ride right now.
But are you ready for the adventure?
There's a choice to sit down in the ride and put the harness on and go for the adventure in the good place.
Yeah.
Or continue to try and self-sabotage. Source chose you. This is an opportunity. You should be excited.
On an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers starts now. Hi, Dr. Claudia. Welcome back to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. You are our first repeat guest. I am so excited to get to talk to you again. We had such a good conversation last time, and let's see what is going to come up for us today.
I love it. I'm so excited. I'm even more excited that I'm the first repeat guest. So here we are. We're doing the thing.
I know. Well, I think that we hit it off and we had such a great conversation before, but a lot has changed. I mean, it honestly wasn't even that long ago that we spoke, but we were just talking right before we pushed record, and there's been a lot of change going on in the world, and we're not going to dive into something like big doom and gloom or negative, but like the energies, there's a different energy of feel. I mean, you feel it, right?
There is. Yeah. So there's a lot of quantum shifting actually going on. So we are jumping into higher level timelines. And when we do that, these energetics, they feel new, they feel different, because we're used to sitting at a different energetic level. And so it's not just mentally we feel different, emotionally we feel different, physically we feel different. Things are starting to change in our environment. And when we do these kind of big up levels individually and collectively, because this is a collective push, consciousness expands. And when consciousness expands, we start to rattle out some dense things. And so it can look a little rougher for a little bit, but ultimately we're moving to a higher level. So even though things can initially come off looking a little rough, it's for the highest good, and we're all moving towards the highest good. So the energetics that I'm reading are very positive and uplifting. And it's in the allowance of releasing the things that we shouldn't be taking with us to these levels that just is coming out in the mix.
So we're in a period of quantum shifting and up-leveling. What is that collective shift that's happening? Like, what is the gist of what we're trying to shift into?
So there is definitely another wave of awakening happening. A very large wave of individuals who are starting to ask those important questions, the questions of who are they really? And where do they really originate from? And what is the meaning of their life? And how can they express their authentic self? They're starting to have those questions. They're starting to question the narratives that run through our societies. They're starting to question what we really want our future to look like, individually and collectively. And so the energetics is another big wave of awakening.
So that's really it. It's kind of just more people asking these questions to get to know themselves on a deeper level. And it's just triggering all this, what you said, like, what do you call the dense energy what is that dense energy that we're letting go of?
Resistance.
So
it's
resistance to change.
Identify it as resistance. So I use a lot of terminology around this that could be interchangeable. So density, resistance, those terms are really interchangeable for me, because when things are dense, you have a harder time moving through them. So you want to think about it, the difference between dry sand You can move your feet through dry sand, the top layer, very easily. But when you start to go into those thicker layers where they have more moisture and it's thicker, it's denser. So it's more difficult to move through. And when we change and expand, the expansion happens through pushing through that resistance layer, through pushing through that density. In order to expand, you have to strengthen as you go through. And there's no other way to move through it other than through it. We have to go through it to get there. And we can't skip over it, because it's that resistance that we're overcoming, that we're moving through, that creates the expansion.
So, I mean, that comes with anything. I mean, when we're talking about change, there's going to be resistance when something is changing. So really a more mass conscious awakening, we're just talking about like a bigger shift and a bigger change. So we're going to feel that more resistance. And that's why things could get a little bit muddy and things could get a little bit complicated. And there can be those conflicts, because that is just almost like that fight back that we need to push through to really rise to that next level. Is that more kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, because this is a period of time where we have to call everything out on the table. So I know the last time that we talked, I looked at the clips and I was like, what really went on? What was going on that time period? And I shared with you that over the next 6 months to a year, things are going to be unmasked. We are going to see them for what they are. And that is what is occurring right now. So when you see these things that you believe to be one way initially, now you're starting to see things from a different perspective, and you're starting to question, what is the actual plan of action we should be taking in these arenas? And you're starting to see the underlying energetics of the truth of the situation, because the masking is being removed. And so when we expand consciousness, the masking is removed. And that's why it's interesting to see it play out, not just in the world scope, but I mean, we can look at, there's been a lot of interesting celebrity news in the recent weeks about people from our childhood growing up that were up on a pedestal, and the truth of the situation is very different from what we perceived it to be. And so it's this unmasking that's going on, that's allowing us to expand our perspective. And I think it's interesting too that we're talking about resistance today, because the theme of when we're speaking is very much having resistance come up. I actually emailed my collective yesterday about the resistance coming up, because we're closing out this very powerful eclipse cycle in this month, and it's purging out the things that we cannot take with us. So when you go to the airport, right, and your luggage is overweight, and you have to leave something behind in order to get your luggage at the appropriate weight, this is what the universe is doing to us individually and collectively at the moment. It's saying, okay, you're overweight for this next part of your journey. You need to be at this space, and I'm going to pull out what I feel is necessary to pull out in the situation. This isn't the type of releasing where we're like, oh, I want to release this limiting belief so I can step into this version of myself. This time, this particular round is the dealer's choice. This is the universe's choice. The universe is going to pull out what it has deemed you no longer need. And so there is a big release of control in this energetic realm right now as well.
So how do we step into that? Like, what if we are individually resisting, like you said, it's happening on an individual level, but it's also happening on a mass level. So, but we have to break it down, because all of us are experiencing it in our own little world. So we are going to have those releases in our own place that contribute to that mass release. So how do we learn to let go? And like, I feel it. I feel a lot of resistance in my own life and things that I'm like trying to hold on to or fight through. And it's like, you're right. It is out of my control. It is out of our control. So how do we lean into that?
One of the ways that we can lean into this is to explore this in our physical bodies. Because when we have a physical representation for what we need to do spiritually and emotionally in that energetic realm, it can be very helpful. So when we're struggling with releasing, one of the things that we can do to practice is to sit with yourself for a couple of minutes and start to clench very specific muscles. Clench it as hard as you can. As hard as you can, and hold on to it. Really experience that clenched muscle for an extended period of time, and then release it. And feel the level of energetic release that you feel through that, and the level of comfort that comes with that release. That will allow you to understand energetically what you need to do, because what you're doing is you're holding on for dear life. And at some point, your hand's going to start to hurt. Your muscles are starting to hurt. This is no longer comfortable. And it's in that releasing that we need to do. So it's leaning into it more, is understanding the mechanics of it, but it's also leaning more into faith and trust. Because when you hold on like that, you're saying, I don't trust my guides. I don't trust source to take care of me. I don't trust you to make sure that I have everything I need. I'm the one that has to do it.
Yeah.
And when we move into this quantum space, because this is what we're doing as we expand our consciousness, we're moving more into an understanding of reality in the quantum realm versus the linear time space. Linear time space says A plus B equals C. That's not the equation in the quantum realm. The quantum realm is we're entangled with exactly what we're meant to cross paths with. And the more we give allowance, trust, and faith to that process, the quicker it shows up.
So when we're talking about that clenching and that holding on, is that kind of what we're seeing on a, like that bigger level? Not to like go into like all the trials and tribulations and the horribleness that goes on in the world, but is that kind of what we're seeing? Is that why there's like this anger or that violence or that backlash or just that like that clashing of so many different things? Because it's not only in one place. We're not just talking about one area where there's a fight. There's multiple fights going on. And we've been seeing it here on our own home front for a couple years now, this constant like battle. So, I mean, whatever we're feeling internally, that's what we're witnessing like on a bigger scale. Is that kind of what you're saying?
100%. And I think the best visual that the guides have given me in relationship to dealing with these energies, these resistance energies, the turmoil that floats to the surface, the clear separation amongst neighbors and peoples in stark disagreement with how things should be handled, is in large part this resistance energy that has ruled the day for thousands of years, not just hundreds of years, but thousands of years. There is a larger cycle at play closing energetically, because with the evolution of consciousness and moving into higher frequencies and rooting in higher frequency emotions, there is a transition of thought and a transition of what power really looks like, what equity really looks like, what is best for one, and also incorporating best for all. There are those energies at play that are taking root. And when they take root, the things that have been rooted are I see a toddler throwing a tantrum. You know, there's there's a tantrum to be had because I don't want to give up my power. I don't want to give up what I've held on to for this time. And it's not about a proverbial war. It already is. These higher frequency spaces already exist. It's simply about anchoring them in and about allowing them to physically manifest into our environment, because these timelines already exist. It's not like we are having to fight to create them. They already exist. We are just anchoring them into place. And as we anchor them into place, we release ones that are no longer aligned. And nothing is going to go quietly. That's not the way that works. So it's a progression over time of an acceptance of a new energy.
Well, would you say then that we have been having a conscious awakening for thousands of years? Because, I mean, let's just look at history. Let's not get political. Let's not look at like what's going on right now. But if you do take that as an example of what's going on right now, it actually has roots back so far in history. This is like nothing new. It's like, okay, it's not surprising that there's so much discord and fighting going on in the world. This has been happening for so long. So is that what we're actually facing? Has it just been thousands of years of conscious awakening that we're finally stepping into this quantum space? Or is it just like, or is time, or are we just living in a space where we're in the linear timeline, but we have another version of us out in this quantum space too?
So there's always more versions of us out in the quantum. Where you choose to focus your perspective will produce your reality. So if you are, and that's actually part of the resistance. So the things that we're moving away from are this time, space, linear perspective.
Okay.
And as we evolve, so this isn't that we were all unconscious and all of a sudden everybody's conscious. This is a continuous evolution of consciousness, because Earth, in the grand scheme of things, in all that is a relatively young place. And you want to think of growth the same way you think of, okay, well, we started as a baby. We didn't know how to walk. We didn't know how to crawl. We didn't know how to do any of these things. And then we could do those things. And then we're driving a car. And then we know how to use a cell phone, and like all of these things. So we're at this place now where growth energetically is available exponentially. So growth is an exponential equation. And so you start off feeling like you're getting like these smaller bits of evolution, and then it doubles, and then it doubles again, and then it doubles again. And by the time you get to where we currently are, when you double, that is a big jump. And that's what I mean by the energetics are these quantum leaps into these new timelines. I know for not just my clients, but also my personal inner circle, as we're evolving, I've had conversations with people because the energetics were so clear to me. It was like, okay, there's some of you have one foot in and one foot out into this new place, and you're doing this dance of, oh, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out. It's kind of like, you know, the foot going over the line when you're kids and you're like, I'm not touching you, this back and forth. And I had to have a conversation with several people about like, okay, I need you to get on the roller coaster, and I need you to put on the harness, and I need you to sit down. because you're either on this ride or you're off this ride. And the thing is if you're being offered the ride, you're meant to be on it, because not everybody is being offered the ride right now.
Why not?
Because their soul evolution is not, they're exactly where they're supposed to be. They're exactly where they're supposed to be, and they're doing the roles that they're meant to do.
Okay.
So it's not a right, wrong, or otherwise, or more conscious, less conscious, because there's people who have very high levels of consciousness that aren't currently going on another roller coaster. So I want to be clear about that everybody's exactly where they're supposed to be. But part of it is making the decision to go, okay, I'm going to step into this higher space, because stepping into a higher space is scary. It's scary because you haven't been there yet.
So how do we know if we're being given that option to step into that space or remain? Like, how do we embrace that?
There's going to be opportunities for growth. And they're going to be big, and they're going to challenge you. So I know a lot of people through the eclipse season are like, oh my God, this is awful. I'm being challenged here, and I'm being challenged here, and I'm being challenged here. And I'm sitting here like, this is an opportunity. You should be excited. You should be excited, because you are being challenged to step into the version of yourself that you have envisioned. But the thing is a lot of people, when they're going through growth and they're going through these consciousness evolutions, they don't realize what it takes to get there. They don't realize that there's a lot of uncomfortable things that you have to do along the way. And most of those uncomfortable things are getting out of your own way.
So what do these challenges look like? Is it like relationship challenges? Is it career challenges? Is it financial challenges? Like, what kind of challenges are people being faced with that you see?
All of the above. Because everybody's trajectory is different. It's supposed to be. So my journey is different from your journey. Like we're each a unique expression of source. So we're supposed to have a very unique experience. We may have similarities and things like that where we can connect on and do all of those things, but our individual experience is meant to be completely unique. So when somebody is challenged, it can be accepting abundance into your life. It doesn't always have to be this turmoil type kind of situation. A lot of times, and what I'm seeing with a lot of my clients right now, because the energy is, like I said earlier, very positive and very good. So these challenges, we need to reframe. That's why a lot of times I change the word to opportunity instead of challenge, because people can change their perspective on that easier when we change the terminology, because words matter. But when they're getting what they want. The manifestations that they have been working towards for years are coming in. And so the challenge is to allow yourself to accept them. Allow yourself to sit in that abundance. Allow yourself to let go of that version of you that felt like you weren't enough, that version of you that you've been working on so hard, but you've been in it for so long that you're not used to the things getting delivered. And so when the things get delivered, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. And you have this moment where there's a choice to sit down in the ride and put the harness on and go for the adventure in the good place.
Yeah.
Or continue to try and self-sabotage.
So, I mean, these challenges or opportunities, however you want to say it, they can come across like we might perceive them as something not positive or not great in our life, but actually it's everything we're asking for. And we just need to reframe the way we're looking at them and more of allowing it, because We just don't know what's on the other side of that.
Yeah, because the thing is your nervous system doesn't understand that. Your nervous system understands that I need to do all of this work to be ready for the things. I'm getting ready for the things. I'm getting ready for the things. I'm doing the healing. And then when you cross that threshold and the things start to get delivered, your nervous system is like, wait a minute. I don't know how to operate in the receiving part. I'm confused. I thought we were doing the work. I thought we were in overcoming things. I thought we were healing trauma. I'm used to processing trauma. I'm not used to processing joy and abundance and happiness. And so there is an adjustment period for the good. And that's the funny part that a lot of people forget to touch on is that, you know, a lot of the focus is in the ramp up to the healing and getting people to shift into that healing mode. And then there's a whole nother shift when you've actually cleared a vast majority of your density and you've cleared the generational trauma and you've actually rewritten your limiting beliefs and you have to anchor into that good place that you've created.
Wow.
And so a lot of the energies right now is the anchoring into that new space.
So how do we do that? Because there is so much talk about your nervous system and regulating your nervous system and healing and trauma and all that stuff. But like you said, there's not a lot out there about like how to anchor in and make that change. Because even when you're talking, I'm thinking about it. So many of us grasp onto the hardship or the more difficult things because that's what we're familiar with. That's what we know. That's how we know how to respond. Like, talk about fight or flight. You know, we know what that feels like. So we'll welcome that in half the time more so than that like carefree joy and abundance because that is unknown to us. So how do we learn to accept the like step one foot over, harness in and anchor into those good feelings and that healing?
You make a incredible confident choice based on faith and trust. It's not about doing a lot. It's about deciding. It is about realizing the abundance that you're in, looking at it and going, oh, I accomplished that thing I was working so hard on. And now I get to enjoy that. And it's in learning to sit in it. So when we're talking about our nervous system re-regulating, at that level, it's not as dramatic of a learning to regulate as it is when we're moving through that lower density. That lower density feels really thick. It's difficult. It's, oh my goodness, this is painful. I'm crying. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. I'm all these things. This level is you have all of the tools because you healed your nervous system with those tools. You just have to remember to use them. So it's like, oh, I'm feeling very anxious because I haven't felt receiving my manifestations yet. I'm going to go ahead and take a couple of minutes and slow down and do a breath work that I know regulates my nervous system so that I can accept it. And then you do that breath work and you're like, oh yeah, that does still work. And I'm totally good now. Like it's a more peaceful process that has ease built into it. And it's just about becoming familiar with that level.
I mean, I like how you said you just need to decide. That's one thing I've spoken with my mentor in the past is, you know, like you just have to make that decision and step into it. You know, you, like you said, when you're talking about to your inner circle, going 1 foot in and 1 foot out, like we need to make that decision to accept it. And even like you're saying is noticing the abundance that has been given to us. It's like those daily miracles, those little things. There's so many of them that we just brush by in our day without even taking in because we're so focused on the whatever the challenge, I'm going to say, use that word, challenge versus opportunity. it's in our perception. We see the challenge. We don't see the opportunity. We don't see that positive. And so it's almost like rewiring our brain, but making that decision to do it is the first step.
Yeah, it is. And I'm glad you brought up gratitude, because at this level, gratitude is incredibly important. Gratitude practices, especially once you start receiving things, you can't let that go just because things are good. Because if you start to forget why all of these things are so amazing, you run the risk of sliding back into old habits. And so anchoring into a new space also means anchoring in gratitude. It means sitting there before you go to bed at night and writing down what you're thankful for still every day. It means sitting there and going, wow, that was so amazing today. Thank you. I'm ready for more of that.
So how do we take gratitude? Because I've spoken about this before. It's a term to me that's very similar to manifestation. It gets thrown around a lot, and I think it gets abused. I don't think a lot of the times we really truly embrace what gratitude or manifesting or creating your reality is, because it's talked about so much. And I don't actually think it's talked about on a real level what it means. And it can become routine. Like if you are actually doing a gratitude practice every single day, it can feel routine. So how do we actually maintain the true, genuine feelings of gratitude? Because I think that's where we miss the mark sometimes. We're not genuine in our wants, our needs, our desires, or what we're grateful for.
I think you have a misunderstanding of what gratitude actually is. Because gratitude is routine.
Okay. How so?
It's very much like I routinely drink water. I routinely go and move my body. I routinely meditate. I routinely have practices to take care of myself. They're not necessarily exciting and awe-inspiring every day. They are routine. They are my normal. And when you normalize higher vibrational emotions, it's not this gap that you're experiencing anymore, because the excitement that you feel mentally, but also very much so in your body with these dopamine hits and things like that, it's because there is a deficit in your experience. So you're sitting here and then you have this rush that takes you to here. When you're sitting here, you don't have a rush. You don't have a deficit you're working from anymore. Okay. So genuine gratitude is being grateful even when that feels boring.
Okay.
Redundant.
Yeah.
Regular.
Yeah.
That's where you should be. That's the goal. And that's what I mean when, as we're anchoring into these higher spaces, there is this anticipation or expectation in the spiritual community that you are going to live in a state where you basically feel like you've blown yourself to the moon every day. Yes. Like you're going to be just up here and it's going to be so exciting and it's just, it's so much.
Yeah.
And that's not the way the experience is supposed to be, because you have to think about these higher vibrational consciousnesses that I communicate with. They're not bouncing all over the place like they've had 16 espressos with excitement. That is their norm.
Okay.
And so if we're moving towards them, we need to accept the fact that as we move, we have to normalize that feeling. We have to normalize it. We have to learn to just sit in it. We need to learn to just be bored in it. Because when you're at that higher vibrational experience, boredom actually doesn't come into play as much. Like you learn to just be so grateful in every moment that you're like, oh, I'm excited for this 30 minutes to do nothing. Oh, yay. Like it's different. I had this conversation with a couple of my clients this week. So it's interesting that it's coming up again about how earlier on in awakening, there is this feeling when you connect, and you connect and you get this high. Like you feel like, this is the best thing ever. I just want to live here. And anything less than this feels disconnected.
Exactly.
But you're not disconnected. This is normalizing experiences for you and adjusting your vibrational frequency over time. Because if you were in that super high vibe state all of the time, you wouldn't be able to operate in the 3D in your optimal state for your highest and best and the highest and best of all. Because if you're downloading information constantly, if you're doing it, you don't have time to process it. You don't have time to integrate it. And the conversation I had with my clients is, I remember very early on that feeling. I remember feeling like, oh my God, I'm disconnected now and it's broken. And I broke it. And I used to get upset about that feeling. And what I've integrated into, because those windows of quietness have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter, that when I get a momentary amount of quiet, I'm like, oh, you guys are giving me a break before a lot of stuff's about to happen. I'm getting the rest that I need, this quiet, it's welcomed because it's not a disconnect. You are still incredibly connected, but you need a break. You can't run at 100 miles an hour all day, every day.
Wow. I mean, this is huge. It's almost like you're giving me a channeled session for myself right now because you're so right.
I think that's what's happening, Courtney.
I really feel like it is. I'm like, oh my goodness, you are so right. Once again, my podcast is turning into a self-serving session here.
I'll be back in a month, you guys.
For a monthly tune-up.
Just a little dust off and send you back out into the world.
Of course. No, but that is so true. Like what you're talking about, that high, that rush. And I'm wondering, because I feel like it is a big part of the spiritual community and it is a big part of waking up. And maybe that's what's happening with so many people waking up. You crave it, you want it. And I know exactly what you're saying. I remember however many years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago, when I first was like really, really tapping in and owning this side of me, that rush and how good it felt. And it was just like, I want to be on this high, on this ride you don't want to come out of it. And so I think you're right. Like, I do think you're channeling this for me because I am literally living in this space all day, every day. It is my work now. So yes, I'm not getting those constant downloads. I'm not feeling that constant high. And it does feel like there's a little bit of that mundaneness, but that's actually, you're saying, is a good thing because that means you're anchoring into the normalcy of those feelings and you're allowing yourself the time to really bring them in when it's necessary for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And to everyone else listening too, it's really important that we move you through this process safely, that we move this process through so that you are not having additional unnecessary traumatic events from your adjustment into these frequencies. That's important. The days of having these really traumatic awakenings. So the bunch of us that were responsible for that part, it's like it's like a sword being punctured through something. The edge of the sword, the very tip, is going to take the brunt of that force in the beginning, because you have to puncture the hole for the rest of the sword to go through. And what people don't realize is that you don't have to insist that you're the first one through. You don't have there's a whole slew of us that were intended for that process. And we're here to help you move through this in a way that is easy, that is calm, that is comfortable. Because that's the way it should be.
So it doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be traumatic. It doesn't have to be a battle to waken up. We don't have to have a near-death experience. We don't have to have a rock bottom moment. That it actually can be
you had those of us that did all of those things, so you didn't have to. Take advantage of that. Take advantage of that.
So then what is the job, or what is that wave of people that might be moving through it a little bit in a softer way? I feel like we all have our purpose. We all have our place to help on this ascension. So what would we be looking at if we are one of those ones that are maybe stepping into this a little easier? Like, what is our purpose? Like, what are we bringing to the conversation
to help us integrate this into the world? The less trauma you have, the easier time you have carrying this with you in your day-to-day environments. We need people who are having an easy awakening and a wider perspective of consciousness in every area of everything that we do. We need the people in finance to be doing this. We need people in medicine to be doing this. Like, think about if we have a surgeon having a traumatic awakening. Okay. We don't want a surgeon having a traumatic awakening. We want a surgeon having an easy awakening so that they can continue to do their job and provide service and help the rest of us in the way that we need help. So everybody is participating. Everybody is helping. And those of you that are having an easier time in the 3D with this awakening, you are meant to, because you are going to help us in all of these places and spaces that need touched with more love, that need an expansion of how we should go about doing things. We need shorter work weeks. We need people integrating into the things that light them up. We need so many things. The list is infinite at the current moment of the amount of things that we need to change. We need to speed up while slowing down. It's this whole balance that we have to do right now, and everybody plays such an important part. And it's interesting because right before we hopped on this call, I was having a conversation about playing our parts and accepting our parts and really integrating those parts, because we don't do ourselves any good. We don't do the collective any good if we're consistently comparing ourselves to others, if we are trying to do somebody else's job, because everybody has their own job for a reason, because you're the best at it. You are the best at it. And we need you to do that, because that helps us spread all of this quicker and faster. The quicker people accept what they're good at and how they help, the faster we're going to get there. And sometimes that looks like someone like me out there doing a lot of things, talking to a lot of people. And sometimes that looks like helping with a course at the library, or really being mindful of how you speak to people and the energy that you give them when you are serving them their food or cleaning their house, or all of there's so many things. Everybody is important, and everybody interacts with each other because source is working through us to elevate all of us. So every interaction we have is important.
Well, it's even like you were saying, some people aren't going to be taking this ride, aren't stepping over that line because they are exactly where they need to be. They need to anchor into that space at this moment to help the rest of us transition to another spot. But it's even bringing up, a couple things that you've said now. I've had conversations about, like, the comparison thing is, we're never going to find a sense of peace and acceptance for ourselves if we're constantly comparing, which is kind of what you're saying at this point. It's like we need to own who we are on our individual level. But also, I had this conversation, and it's really interesting that you brought up with the finance world, because I had a conversation with another guest that we were talking about finances and the 3D versus the 5D. And there was this huge conversation. It's like, yes, it's great to be living, like you said, in that 5D, that high. It's wonderful, but we have to take care of ourselves first here in the 3D, because we chose to live here. And then once we're safe and secure in this 3D reality, we can play in that 5D, but we still need to realize that we are here on this earth having a 3D experience that we chose to have.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I actually had this exact same conversation with a client. I was like, this isn't like we're going to reach a level and then you're going to get beamed off the planet. Like,
see, I like to think of it like that.
That defeats the purpose, because you're not doing your job if you're not here.
Yes.
I know. I know. But I know what, because I've experienced it personally. I've been in that space where I'm like, are you guys coming to pick me up yet? I mean, is this over with? I could not have signed this contract. We are kidding. But I've moved into this, so I get it. But I moved into this space where this experience is so fun. This is fun. Like, you're not going to get this experience of a body, of feelings, of this extremely vast experience of emotions anywhere else. You're not going to get it here. So enjoy every single minute of it. And I think about the experiences that I've had in my own life, and I think about the depths to which I have fallen down the hole of dense emotions. And I actually look at it now and I'm like, that's really exciting, because the depths at which you feel the density is equally proportionate to the good you can feel. So you need to experience that entire spectrum to widen it, because if you can feel it all the way down here, guess what? You can also feel it all the way up here. And that's like, it's cool and it's fun. And I get excited to feel emotions. Like, there's nothing better than a really solid cry, to be completely honest. Like, to feel that move through you is about as exciting as like a solid bout of uncontrollable laughter. Like,
so let's just
a spectrum.
Turn off this and go put on some like really sad ballads and start crying so we can feel that. But I mean, it's great.
Well, I cry because I'm so grateful. Like, I have, when you tap into the level of unconditional love that is available to us, it is instantaneously overwhelming the first several experiences of it, because again, that is a depth of emotion we're learning to experience at this juncture. When you really realize, and that's why it's not about turning on sad things. I'm going to have a solid cry at the happiest of things, because it feels so good. And I didn't know I could feel that good. I didn't know I could feel that supported. I didn't know I was that protected. when you experience the full breadth of that, it's like, oh my God, like alignment is it is the highest of highs while being still.
That's what I was going to say. How does that compare to that awakening high versus the alignment high?
The awakening high is absolute chaos. So it is a bull in a china shop. You are trying to catch your bearings. You have no idea what's going on. Your body's doing weird things. You're hearing things. You're seeing things. You're feeling energy you've never felt before. It is the best way to, I think, explain and again, we're going into an easier process. So the people that are awakening now aren't going to have this experience that I had that is incredibly traumatic. It is, you just don't know what you're doing at that juncture. It's being incredibly overstimulated and having to anchor yourself into like the sheer force of will that is required for earlier awakeners to ground out in those beginning stages is the force that had to take place to do that is monumental. So I'm glad we're moving into a place where that's not the case, because then there's a lot of people here, a lot of people awakening. The amount of support that's required, we have to have foundational support systems built in order to handle what is happening. And I'm glad to see that we're moving into that place in space where that's happening. That is happening.
So do you actually see like the children that are coming into the world aren't really actually going to have a big awakening because they're already connected? I mean, I know we're all connected, but they're coming in more awake.
Yeah. I mean, well, everybody comes in awake. So that's one of those things. Like, we all come in awake and connected. It's the level to which the resistance is trying to turn that off.
Right.
And so these children are coming into a place in space that has less resistance to their abilities. It has less resistance to their connection. And so, yeah, they're just going to exist the way that they were intended versus having to fight to get to your authenticity.
How do I sign that soul contract?
You're already here, ma'am. So
I love that you were saying that. Like, there's no way I would have signed this soul contract, because I think that is. I talked about that before. I know it's interesting. It's like, why in my right mind? Like, I understand all the logistics of everything we're talking about, but sometimes it's kind of like, why in my right mind would I have decided? I mean, that's the thing we have to remember. We chose this. We chose to have these experiences. We signed that soul contract, and good, bad, ugly, messy, all of it. Like, we're choosing this. And sometimes it's kind of like, why?
Well, and it's not just we chose this. Source chose you.
So
like, this isn't a one-way street. This is a collaboration. It's a collaboration in elevation of consciousness. And the thing is like, I get to access these amazing places and spaces and energies, and which allows me to have a different perspective on this. And so, yeah, initially it was like, I wouldn't have signed this. This is crazy. And then you realize who you are in the grand scheme of things. You realize the work that you do, the work that you've been doing for so many lifetimes, and the commitment you have to this. And it's like, oh, I'm a badass. Like, this is great. I'm excited now, because now I'm understanding again who I am. I'm understanding the infiniteness I am. I'm understanding the access to the infiniteness that I have. And there's a level of understanding that's developed that in reality, you wouldn't have had it any other way. You wouldn't have chosen, you get to look back and you go, wow, that really was perfect. Every mess, every hard part, the part, I mean, because I've had dark experiences. But again, I'm also seeing this now from the perspective that like that caused me to have the capacity to withstand a level of emotion that would also allow me to experience the opposite of that.
So do you feel that we are bringing our work, whatever we have chosen, we have collaborated with to do in this lifetime that we are living today, right now, our experience from all these previous lifetimes, we've been doing this work through all of our past lives. It's just a constant evolution. And that's what, every time we come back with a little bit more knowledge, or we can further our own individual mission a little bit more.
Yeah. So the thing is when you look at time and space and how it works quantumly, the lifetimes that we've had here are a tiny smidgen of your actual existence. So the entirety of it all was very easy for you to look at and go, oh, okay, well, we're going to do this one and this one, and then move to this one, and then this one and 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 this one. And because your understanding of the web of consciousness and how you move through it is so much more expanded in those higher dimensional spaces. So all of our lifetimes combined look like a very, just like moving a smidgen. So yes, everything that we're doing is incredibly important to the whole, but also having an understanding of how big the whole is, you get to remove the limited capacity of understanding that holds you back from thinking that, oh my God, I said this sentence this way to this person, and now I'm going to lose sleep for 6 hours over it, having anxiety about it. Like, you realize how insignificant those things are. While also understanding that everything happens in divine order. So you were meant to flub up your sentence because it down the stream affected something else that needed to be that way. So there's this complete release of control that happens, and there is this amazing connection with divine timing that takes place. This connection that knows everything is truly working for the highest good. Nothing could be happening otherwise. And I trust that, and I have faith in that. And it doesn't matter what you throw in front of me. I know that to be true.
Wow. What a great way for us to go out on and tee us up for the next time we talk. I think we're going to probably talk about quantum space and time. I feel like, I mean, it's just like when we start getting in there, and I know I'm late to the game, but I just ended up watching the movie a couple weeks ago, Interstellar, with my husband one night. He's like, "You've never seen this? We need to watch it." And it was like opening up my mind to that space and time and all those things. And, this quantum space, it is really, really fascinating. And the logical side of it, I get it. But then there's like, all the questions. And so I feel like I have our next topic. So next time I need a download.
Oh, well, we'll get it on the books. I'll see you guys soon, because we're going to just be doing these sessions.
our monthly session on the podcast. So, okay, for anyone that's listening new or that didn't see us the first time, how do we get in touch with you? How do we work with you? How do we get your courses? I know you were working on 2 books last time we spoke, so give us all the juicy details of all of that.
So the books are not ready yet. But again, that is in divine timing.
Come on. Okay.
That is something that actually I'm in the works of allowing Source to put the players in place that need to have that work out the way that it's meant to. And I don't need to rush that process. But it will be within the next year. I anticipate that the first book will be released. Not because it can't be finished before then, but because it needs to be done correctly and the way that the guides are asking it to be done. So in order to reach me, you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Dr. Claudia Thompson. My website is drclaudiathompson.com. All of my programs are available. I do one-on-one coaching sessions. We're getting very close to a waitlist situation. So if you're interested in that, definitely hop on board when you can and get grandfathered into what's available now, because things are getting very, very busy. And I also have a membership that is wonderful for people in the beginning stages of awakening, because I have a learning library on there with trainings for those of you that need to learn how to regulate your nervous system and figure out how to meditate. There's a meditation library that also includes my Awakening series, and the Awakening series will wake you up. So I've had clients that have purchased it and then emailed me like a week later, and they're like, was this supposed to be an awakening? And I was like, it is called the Awakening series. I wasn't kidding. Did you not
read the title?
There's a disclaimer that things are going to start happening, and it shocks them how fast it happens and takes place. So that's a meditation series that I have that is available standalone, but it's in the meditation or the My Quantum Soul membership. So you have access to that, because the My Quantum Soul members are getting access to all of the new meditations first. But we also have a live event where we do an energy clearing, and I take you on a journey live, and then we do a really long Q&A after, so you can ask me questions, we can troubleshoot things, and we have a lot of really great community support in there. So that's the options to work with me if you're interested.
How amazing. I will put all of that stuff in the show notes. And thank you again for joining me for the second time. I love when we get to chat.
You're welcome. It was very good to chat again.
And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Dr. Claudia Thompson, for joining me in yet another great conversation all about expanding our consciousness, making quantum leaps, and everything else that's going on in this world for the best. If you want to work with Dr. Claudia, I'll put all the information of how to get in touch with her in the show notes. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers and Intentional Media on our website at CourtneyMyers.com. That's where you'll find our books, courses, and everything else we have going on. I can't wait to talk to you soon. Bye.